after hearing all these wildly different opinions about Spider-Man Brand New Day, the MCU is back, baby! Marvel is saved! It was okay. I kinda hated the whole movie. Tom Holland is not my Spider-Man. You know, I had to finally go and see it. After seeing the very first showing of the morning, let's talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Hey guys, Tony here with Nerds Never Sleep, and today we're going to be talking about a little movie you may or may not have heard about called Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, what I want to do today is I want to give you a spoiler-free review with some of my thoughts and feelings about this movie after just seeing it a few moments ago. Now, first and foremost, guys, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie, which we will get into. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go into spoilers. So I'll make sure that pops up here for you guys to stop the video, take a break, or do whatever you like. And do me a solid, guys. Do not go into spoiler details here in the comments. We can save that for after the movie's been out for a little while. So let's get right into it. Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to pick up a few years after the No Way Home movie. Probably telling us why we haven't seen Spider-Man in any of the other MCU projects, things like that. But at the beginning of the movie, and we've seen in a lot of the trailers, we do get a kind of sizzle reel of greatest hits of the villains and kind of going on about that Peter Parker has been getting himself into over the course of these several years. We also get little pictures of him snooping, so to speak, on his friends' old Instagrams, just so he can kind of keep tabs on how everyone's doing. And of course, if you've seen the trailers or anything like that, you know we've seen some of the iconic imagery replicating some very famous cover art from comic books. We've seen the Amazing Fantasy 15. We've seen a fight with Tarantula, some battles with Scorpion, some Tombstone. A lot of iconic little covers and imagery are depicted in the quick sizzle reel that we do get in the trailer and in the movie in general. I honestly loved it. I like that instead of just hearing about something off screen, like spoiler alert for the Spider-Man 2 video game, you did a lot of the things in that game off screen. A lot of the villain stuff happened off screen, and it kind of sucked. At least in Brand New Day, we do get a glimpse of other villains, of other things he's been doing, even though they are very, very quick and rapid fire. Now, obviously, in this movie, Peter Parker is living the kind of single, reclusive lifestyle. We don't really get an indication of how he's making his money or what kind of work he's doing. We just see that he is Spider-Man. And as far as we know from Avengers and Falcon and Winter Soldier, well, being a superhero doesn't really pay the bills. That is one of my first complaints about this movie, and I am going to say that right off the rip, is the lack of the Daily Bugle, the J. Jonah Jameson.
Are you serious?
And we all know that because the actor who plays JJJ had stated that he will not be returning to reprise the role. I think that's a big missed opportunity here. So that led me to one of my first questions of the film is, what does Peter do for work? Are we all supposed to just assume he's taking photos and things like that? Or is he living off of some kind of Tony Stark money? We don't know.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
One of the things they kind of decided not to let us know in this movie, sorry if that's a mild spoiler, guys, but it is one of the things that did bother me throughout this movie is going, where is he getting his funds? Now, we all know what Peter Parker typically does in almost every single iteration of Spider-Man, but it's not even touched upon here. And I think that was something that was a very missed opportunity to even just show it in the kind of quick recap that we got over the years of maybe him flipping and setting up a camera, doing something like that to get these different things going on to show that he is making some money. So we do see Peter doing a lot of things stopping a lot of criminals, helping the police, things like that, having very good rapport with the police, which I do like. People are cheering for him. There's news stories that are actually positive about him. So we get a lot of things that Spider-Man is doing good. And then we see Peter, and he's not doing so good. He kind of lives in a rundown apartment, kind of loft, if you want to call it that, where he's got his whole computer network and things like that set up. So as you guys saw during some of the trailers and some of the reveals and things like that, well, he's kind of starting to go through some changes. And we don't mean puberty. He's getting migraines and all kinds of odd things happening to him. And that's not just the spider sense. It's full on migraines where it's stopping him from functioning almost at some points. We see him kind of swallowing down a bunch of Tylenol and aspirin and stuff like that. And he's kind of trying to figure out what's going on with him. And then, of course, we get into our first big chase scene. And we see that in all the trailers, things like that, he's chasing down an armored vehicle that's kind of shooting at everybody. He's going around trying to stop it. And then we see, of course, the Punisher roll up, who, if we are in New York, I'm glad we've gotten some other characters that are New York based in this film, like the Punisher. I think that is great that we're finally getting to see these two characters interact with each other, something we've never had before in live action, and bravo to them for actually doing it. So we have this whole big chase. It's very, very well done, very well shot, and that is a thing that is fantastic about this movie. I'm going to tell you right off the rip, there are a lot of practical effects. As you guys saw the behind the scenes and things like that, you saw that they were actually filming these chases in the streets with vehicles, causing explosions, having them fly in the air. A lot of this movie was done with practical effects. And oh man, going through just this beginning segment of the movie, you can tell it doesn't have that strange, uncanny valley volumetric feel that a lot of the other Marvel movies that are just filmed in a big green screen dome gives you. This film actually feels like it's in a world it's lived in. It actually feels like it's real, like you could walk into the screen and be in New York City, because guess what? They filmed a lot of this stuff in the real world, not in the volume. So props to Sony, whoever was in charge, Pascal, whoever it was that made that decision, props to you guys, because it looked amazing throughout the whole movie. So we get our little introduction to the Punisher. They're kind of quipping back and forth with each other. I like the banter. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man because he does have the youthful, kind of sarcastic quippiness, and he's quick with it. He's very fast with it. I like that. So him and the Punisher have a little bit of banter. We get a little bit of an indication that they've already had some altercations or even team-ups in the previous years that we're going through. So I like that. I like that we're still dropping hints. And so this chase sequence ends up coming to an end. Spidey saves the day, etc., etc. And we get into our big bad kind of setup here, where a lot of the people involved with these crimes don't know what's going on. You can see them kind of jolting their heads a little bit and someone going into another body, it hitting them physically, looking like it's hitting them, which I thought was a little weird. It's a little jarring, but it is a way where you can actually visually see him being jumped in and out of. So we've got somebody going in and possessing people and jumping from body to body. I won't tell you guys who it is right off the rip, but it is part of the mystery of solving who or what is causing this chaos. Now, I won't go too deep into the middle sections of the movie and the end of the movie. Obviously, I don't want to do spoilers. I'm going to keep this spoiler-free until we get to the latter section of the video. But throughout the course of the film, we get introductions of damage control and their leaders and things like that. We find out that the Hand has a little bit to play. Not what I was expecting in the play movie, but we saw them in the trailers. We know the Hand has something to do with it. And my theories about the Hand were way off. And the action pieces up to here are phenomenal. I think the fights, the choreography, everything is done really, really well. And it doesn't look overly CG, overly cartoony, and overly fake. That is one thing that I absolutely love about this movie. And I think over time, this is going to go and be a benchmark for what I hope we will see in the future of superhero MCU movies with more practical effects that are going to stand a test of time rather than CG that's going to look like PS4 cutscenes over the years. So throughout all this beginning half the movie, we're going to say, Peter is again noticing some different things happening to him, starting with the migraines. You've seen in the trailers, his eyes are changing colors. We're seeing that he's starting to change organically or on a molecular level.
Go, Web, go!
So, as we've seen in the trailers, again, no spoilers for you guys if you've seen the trailers, he is going to look to, well, somebody for help. He looks to a couple people for help that I will not spoil yet, and ends up going to a college and meeting up with a certain professor who used to be this big green guy right here, Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, aka Mark Ruffalo just being Mark Ruffalo. So he discovers that Bruce has actually developed an inhibitor for his own hulking out that will stop him from doing it, and kind of picks his brain a little bit about maybe being able to make one for himself. Bruce kind of goes on to lecture him about, are you sure what you're keeping in is what you should be keeping in? Are you sure what you're inhibiting is what you're supposed to be inhibiting? Gives him kind of a lecture, so to speak. He kind of goes off on his own way. What's happening is his arachnid DNA and his human DNA, or the hormone levels, are starting to counteract each other. So it's almost like he's going through spider puberty.
It makes me feel kind of funny. Like when we used to climb the rope in gym class.
So he's getting all these new kinds of powers. He's getting all these new spikes in his strength and his speed. And he's getting all this new kind of power without the responsibility. So he kind of lets the beast out a little bit, as we saw in one of the trailers, where he kind of goes a little berserk. He almost hulks out himself at one point where he's fighting Scorpion, and he smashes Scorpion through a cop car. So we do see this kind of shift in Peter that we've seen in previous iterations like the Sam Raimi movies when he was possessed by the symbiote. But this is just Peter going through metabolic changes. And no, guys, there are no emo dance numbers. I'm sorry. So it does make for a pretty interesting story, and I would have actually liked if Brand New Day was more focused on the changes and the kind of should I or shouldn't I try to stop the changes, then what we do kind of shift to. And that is our mind-hopping, people puppeteering, telepathic villain that we end up getting. And we don't actually find out who the villain is until quite a bit down through the film. So that was one of the things that I actually would have preferred if we had kept to the Spider-Man going through changes and showing how it's causing him to deal with the things going on around him and how it's having others deal with him. I would have liked to have seen more of that. The main meat and potatoes of this story is actually Peter trying to track down this kind of mind-jumping person who we see does not affect him. And that's one of my gripes that we'll get into later about this. We're going to put a pin in that. But for some reason, this person cannot jump into Peter's mind. If you've seen the trailers, there's nothing new here, guys. He is the only person who can stop this menace. And they seem to be targeting damage control offices, warehouses, and things like that. Using all kinds of people, using villains, using civilians, using police officers, whatever they can get their mind on, I guess. It becomes kind of an interesting cat and mouse where Peter's trying to track down a person who isn't ever seen and talking to witnesses that have no recollection of anything happening. So it does become a little interesting from Peter's standpoint. But as an audience member, we kind of already know what's going on. So it doesn't feel right. But we go into a few more action set pieces. The action sequences are phenomenal. I think they are some of my favorite action sequences that we have had in any of the Spider-Man movies. That is one of the big standouts of this movie's almost 2.5 hour long runtime. So it's got some meat to it. Now, there are some unnecessary things going on. Obviously, he's got a little bit of the, I want to call it the Brandon Routh Superman Returns kind of vibe, where he's spider stalking instead of super stalking. We've got a little bit of kind of Peter creeping on MJ and creeping on Ned, and I get it. He's trying to keep tabs on him. He misses his friends. I get that. This movie, another big focus about it is the weight of the world on Peter Parker. I have nobody. I have no Aunt May. I have no friends. Nobody that knew me knows who I am anymore. This is somebody who has literally paid the ultimate price and lost everything that he held dear to himself. And that is one of the things that I did like of this movie. How well it handled Peter's loss without bogging the whole movie down with it. And I know that seems counterproductive, but the bits that we get in this movie of him by himself, alone, in the kind of dirty, dingy place that he's in, nobody to talk to, literally trying to make friends or empty his purse out, his emotional purse out to anyone, is a very good thing, I think. I did like the way they handled it a lot. They did not demean Peter. They didn't bash him constantly. They made you feel sympathetic, and they made you feel the weight of the power and the responsibility that being Spider-Man has, and what it does when you have to choose between, do I want to be Peter Parker and have my civilian life, or do I want to be Spider-Man? And what will the outcome be if I give up one or the other? It didn't overly do it like the Thunderbolts did, where it was just, everyone's mentally unstable, everyone's suffering from trauma, we're all gonna hug and we're gonna make it better and we're gonna be friends and that's how we're gonna stop everything with friendship. They did it in a very nuanced way in this film, and I did like that a lot. I appreciate that they did not downgrade or degrade or shame Peter Parker or make him just look weak or feeble or inferior. Except for one point in the movie, and we'll get to that in the spoiler section. All in all, I did really enjoy the pacing of the movie up until we were dealing with our main villain. Now, as you know, our main villain has been secret for a long time, which it wasn't a very good secret when we announced that Sadie Sink was being cast. Now, a lot of us were hoping she was going to be our new and improved MJ, but she's not. Yes, it is true. She is playing our first, technically our second mutant, because we did have a mutant for Miss Marvel, Jean Grey. This is a very murky aspect about the film. I do not like the choice of Jean Grey being our main antagonist. I hate everything about that. And that is my biggest problem with this movie. There really isn't a villain if you're a comic book fan. Anytime you put established or well-known superheroes against each other in a film, even if one is portrayed more in the right or more in the wrong, it's going to cause a problem with your villain. Not having a big bad, I think, makes this movie suffer the most. In every other Spider-Man movie, we have had an established big bad. We had Doc Ock, we had Green Goblin, we had Mysterio, we had Sandman. And I guess by the end of the movie, you get to know who the real villain is. But it isn't really anything you care about. And it also isn't anything that kind of gets resolved. I know, that's a little bit spoilery, but it's part of the problem with what this movie's doing. When we have Jean Grey and Spider-Man and they're at odds with each other, it kind of makes you go, well, I love Spider-Man, but this is going to be the start of X-Men, and you start developing all these conflicting feelings. And I don't like that. And then it also makes you more sympathetic to the person causing all these horrible things to happen. There are some messed up things being done. There are buildings being blown up, people being shot at, people being thrown off buildings, people being thrown in front of cars. I mean, you name it, these things are happening. And you put yourself in the perspective that this is Jean Grey doing this. And it is the one thing I think we could have removed and had a better movie overall without her. I think having the addition of the Hulk and the Hulk Spider-Man fight was awesome, but I wish it went longer. If you saw it in the previews and you saw it in the trailer, that's almost what we got. It was so cool to finally see Spider-Man and Hulk fight. Now all we need is Wolverine and Hulk to fight on screen too, and it would be amazing. So I think the thing is if we would have cut the Jean portion out, would we have had the same movie? Well, yes and no. As I said in my previous stream and even clip video that I did put out, I think if we would have made the villain Kralek, got the pronunciation correct this time, guys, that would have made more sense with the characters that we did bring into this story. Having the Punisher, having the Hand, things like that. Kralek actually has a very big backstory with the Hand. He is the demon that they worship and get a lot of their power from. And he's tangled with the Punisher. He's possessed Daredevil during the Shadowlands arc, things like that. I think taking Jean out of the equation and putting another Spider-Man or Punisher or Hand villain into this film would have made for a exponentially better movie. At the end of the day, the movie had phenomenal special effects, great sounds. The soundtrack, honestly, I can't even tell you I remember any of the music. I was so dialed into the actual film itself. So that's probably not the best thing. The resolution of the movie left some stuff to be desired, and it left a lot of questions to be asked, which we will get into in the spoiler section of this video. I think at the end of the day, between the immensely amazing and fun fight sequences we had, the quippy Spider-Man that we do get, and even the kind of more violent mutation version that we're seeing of Spider-Man is really, really well done. I don't think I have had this much just fun with a Spider-Man movie in a long time. Yes, No Way Home was phenomenal. But as far as a Spider-Man movie, I think this film actually gives us the more grounded, street-level Spider-Man that we've all been missing for the unfortunate run of Tom Holland movies. While I say it's some of the most fun I've had, it's also some of the most frustrating that I've had. It's very hard for me to pin it down. And I feel like the central problem for me is the Jean Grey, the forced inclusion of our mutant characters. I think this would have been a way better movie had they have taken her out of it and replaced her with another migraine killer. Hell, it could have been Mr. Negative, right? We could add Mr. Negative in it. We could add Chameleon just being other people. We could have had Carrion, Kralek, who is the demon, the beast, who the Hand worships, and it deals with the Punisher, would have made sense for the film. And guess what? Would have introduced your audience to another new character. To what? Sell new merch for, sell new books for. Because now, every time these characters show up in films and movies, and they're well represented, all their back issues start to sell. Everything starts to move merch. Shoving Jean Grey into your movie, who's already an established character, who's already blowing off the charts with X-Men 97 already, it's not going to add anything to your film. So I think we could have done without the Jean Grey. Scrapped her, swapped another character in, and maybe tweaked a couple of the story beats a little bit that were focused around Jean to the other characters, and this would have been exponentially better than what I thought. I would actually give this, even though I did have a big problem with the Jean Grey portion. And honestly, the other portion I didn't really even touch on were Ned and MJ. I hate Zendaya as MJ, but she was the least insufferable in this movie that she's ever been. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And the same thing for Ned. He was still goofy sidekick, but he was kind of toned down a little bit. They brought it down, and I liked that. But I also loved the interactions that we got with Peter and MJ and Ned, kind of in a like that longing that Peter just feels, and the kind of almost deja vu approach that we get with their interactions. I really, really liked it. And it made me actually like Ned and Zendaya's MJ more than I have in any of the other movies. And I never thought that would be possible. Do I still think that Zendaya should have gotten the boot and we should have gotten a real MJ? 1,000,000%. But they made her less insufferable in this movie. Not all the way. Still a part that really pissed me off. But they did improve a heck of a lot. So there were a lot of really good things about this movie. But my biggest gripe with the movie is if I'm not sold on the antagonist, what is the sole purpose of this movie? And to me, that's where it loses some points. This movie could have been an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 100%. But at the end of the day, what is it doing for Spider-Man? Is the question. This is a Spider-Man movie. And what it seems to do, without spoiling the ending, without spoiling anything else, is it seems to do in typical Marvel fashion, set up for next products. And that is the one thing I don't like, is that I think a movie this big, just like with Far From Home, things like that, should be able to stand on its own and not just set up next projects. I don't feel a Spider-Man movie should be a setup for other projects. And that's what this felt like. And it didn't have to be that way. But at the end of the day, we did learn more about Peter. We did learn more about his powers. We learned more about where things are going. So it kind of accomplishes its goal, but unfortunately its main goal becomes set up next Marvel products. And that is what I didn't like about it. So the action is great. The stunts are phenomenal. The special effects were top tier. Ruffalo Hulk, I'll never, ever, ever get behind just Hulk being Mark Ruffalo. When Hulk is Hulk and Hulk is crazy and Hulk is savage, I love him. But when Hulk is just Mark Ruffalo, get rid of it. Just get rid of it. I like more of this movie than I dislike. So I never thought I would say this, but I have to agree with the IGN review of a 7 out of 10 for this one. And it might go up, it might go down after my initial kind of shock of seeing it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, I think you're going to love this movie. If you're an old school comic book fan, you're going to love all the little things that are kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. I can't wait to actually get it on Blu-ray or on streaming to where I can pause things and rewind things. And this movie would be a 9 out of 10 had we had gotten rid of the Jean Grey element and replaced her with somebody who made more sense in the Spider-Man grand universe, not for the what Marvel is setting up later universe. In the Spider-Man universe, I think if we would have had Kralik, if we would have had Mr. Negative, if we would have had the Chameleon, if we would have had Carrion, if we would have had Jackal, any of these other villains that could either manipulate people or hop into people or demonically possess people, this movie would have been exponentially better. We would have had an actual dedicated villain, and I think it would have given us more use for the character of the Punisher. So, that is going to be my final review. I am going to say I recommend this movie very highly. I think I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. And there were the parts that I liked less that I hated more than I thought I would. So it is a very polarizing movie. But at the end of the day, it is a damn good movie. It is a well shot movie. It is actually pretty well paced considering how much crap they're juggling. So I do have to give them credit for that. Whether you're an adult, you're a kid, you're a comic junkie, you're a superhero movie normie, whatever it is, I think at the end of the day, you're going to come out of this movie having a very good time. I know I did. I know the theater I was in they all seemed to very much enjoy it. This is going to be the movie to beat this year. And if this weekend's box office numbers are any indicator, this is probably going to be the highest grossing movie of the year. I know we've got Doomsday coming this year too, but I don't think it will have the longevity that Spider-Man Brand New Day does. I think Brand New Day is going to be a film people are going to enjoy. They're going to come back to watch again, and they're going to watch it over and over again when it comes to streaming. I highly recommend it with as many problems as I did have with one of the main focuses of the movie, which was our antagonist. Everything else around it, and even the parts with Jean Grey and our antagonists, were well done. All in all, like I said, this movie could have been a 9 out of 10. But I'm going to give it a 7. I debated on giving it a 6. But the amount of fun that I had watching the movie, it's got to raise up another point. Because the fun factor does have to count for more. If you haven't already seen it, because I know a lot of theaters are sold out of tickets, I highly recommend going and checking it out. That is going to be it for the non-spoiler review, guys. But if you guys want to stick around afterwards, we are going to get into full-on spoilers. If you guys are only hanging out for the base review, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for checking out the review today. Please, no huge spoilers in the comments, guys. Save that stuff for later on. That's going to be it, guys. If you're not sticking around for spoilers, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, everyone. So for those of you who stuck around or skipped ahead of the review to get to it, let's talk about some spoilers. Now, this movie, again, I had a lot of highs, but I had some lows and I had a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to go in the order of the film as best I can. I did make a long list of notes and things that I had that were both questions, concerns, and kind of just things that confused me. So one of the things that I noticed first off was kind of one of the Easter egg things that some of you may or may not have caught. Now, during the tank chase, there was actually a bus that Peter gets smacked into. And in that bus, it zooms out just enough from the inside of the bus. We see a girl with the white streaked hair. It's a very, very quick glimpse, but my first thing, and I yelled it out in the theater, was, "Oh my God, is that Rogue?" And a bunch of people went, "Oh my God." So I was wondering if that was an Easter egg, maybe, because tying to the end of the movie, we saw Jean on a bus as well, kind of going upstate almost. So maybe she's going to the School for Gifted Youngsters. But I was almost wondering if that was kind of a little Easter egg for us, that maybe we might be seeing another mutant along the way. But we never saw her throughout the rest of the movie. So it could have just been my own wishful thinking, but I wonder if anyone else saw that as well. Now, one of the other things that kind of got me, right, and trust me, I don't mind seeing Florence Pugh wearing as little clothes as possible, but the Black Widow scenes, was she necessary in this movie? I mean, I know she was kind of doing some research, but as we saw, Peter still has Friday. So, shouldn't Friday be able to hack all that stuff? I don't know. We had to unnecessarily tie in MCU characters. And yes, that was why she was here on my desk with me, because she is in the movie. But I can't really complain. I loved the way she looked in the movie. But was she necessary? Or was it just, "Hey guys, we need a character we can tie into the other movies. What do we got?" I don't know. Florence Pugh's not doing anything right now. Can we tell her to get naked in a hot tub? Yeah, I like that idea. You know, it was really weird. I mean, it was comical with him keeping his mask on and her kind of joking about it. But was it needed? Was she needed? Probably not. The greater MCU, I know we're trying to get back to everything's connected. So that's good. But we've gone phases without that. So, whatever. One of the other things that I really had to question was throughout the movie, Peter could resist the mental intrusions. And I kept asking why. He's not technically a mutant, although he does have blended DNA. Is it because his arachnid DNA can block the mutant telepathy? I don't think that's how it works. Not explaining why he was immune to telepathy, because in the comics, he's not immune. I was very confused as to why that was. And I think maybe it was just a way for the movie to be like, oh, it's the only way so he can get close to her. Great. But when he's wearing the inhibitor, the body jumped people will go, "You can't sense me anymore. Why is that? You can't sense me." So if that's the case, and Jean can know that he can't sense her anymore, wouldn't that mean she could jump into his mind? And I know she tries at one point and gets in for a minute, and then he kind of has a spike and she gets pushed out. So I think it might be the arachnid DNA or the arachnid hormones that are pushing her out. But again, we don't really touch base on that at all. We don't see Peter questioning why. We see him questioning the things with his powers and the things that are happening to him, but we never have him go, why can't she go in my mind? Why can't she control me? And it's a question that never gets answered. So it bothers me. It bothers me to an ungodly amount, other than just because he's main character. I don't know. It bugged me and I didn't like it. And one of the things that really, really got me was the use of Smart Hulk. And I know he was being mind controlled. The minute I saw him, I physically cringed in my freaking chair. And I made a loud, audible groan to where the people seats down from me kind of looked over. And I went, fucking Smart Hulk, right? And I heard a guy on this side start laughing, but people over there were kind of giving me dirty looks. When he kind of snapped and became Hulk, I really, really enjoyed that. And I wish that scene was longer. Which leads me into one of the things that was kind of, it's a different parts of the same overarching problem. Now, does this mean, at the end of the day, that Bruce Banner in turn gave Peter Parker the idea for the inhibitor, who in turn created what is essentially going to be the mutant collars? Did we make it to where, much like they created Ultron in Age of Ultron, did we make it to where our two heroes created the thing that villains are going to use in future things? So we've got inhibited Banner, we've got inhibited Spider-Man, and Spider-Man uses the inhibitor on Jean at the end, which renders her useless. So we essentially made it to where Peter Parker is the mastermind behind what's going to stop mutants. And that leads me to one of the things that kind of irritated me about the movie. And it was an MJ-focused scene where he was trying to figure out the inhibitor. And MJ was, I am smarter than you. Watch me do it. And she figured it all out. And I know it's a minor thing, but you have to remember, I'm coming from a place where MJ is this beautiful creature right here. Yes, I do think Zendaya is a super hot girl, but MJ is not a science girl. So seeing Peter not be able to solve the problem, but MJ be able to just slide over, buddy, let me get this, and she does it in a matter of minutes and figures it all out, kind of irked me a little bit. But it's the only time in the whole movie that MJ bothered me. So I'm going to chalk that up to a win. Because the other movies that she was in, I couldn't stand her for almost every second she was on screen. This movie made her more tolerable. Did we essentially see that Damage Control has what's essentially a prototype Cerebro? Because that was the vibe I was getting in the whole sequence there at the end of the film, where I almost said Stryker, where Metzger has Jean and he's like, unleash your powers. And they're kind of amplifying her powers inside this controlled unit. And all I kept thinking was, is that a Cerebro prototype? Are we going to get that it's kind of similar? Because that was the vibe I was getting from it. We already have the mutant inhibitors. Maybe we got a Cerebro prototype. So, I don't know. I was drawing a lot of conclusions. But, with those conclusions, you guys, if you know the comics, Metzger was not part of Damage Control. He is actually more like a leader of hate groups like in the X-Men 97 cartoons, the Sons of Liberty and things like that, where he kind of does anti-mutant propaganda, anti-mutant hate speech, organizes anti-mutant rallies, almost like a kind of a lower tier version of Stryker or things like that. So I thought it was a little interesting to incorporate him into damage control. So maybe we're going to have damage control is essentially where we're going to get Sentinels from and things like that. Because throughout the movie, we saw them tinkering with the Shocker's gauntlets that Spider-Man does use on the Hulk and things like that, where they're trying to reverse engineer the weapons. And Metzger says, well, in our hands, they'll be better. Much like the Hand themselves, just suddenly folding and coming under the employ of Metzger, which I thought was really weird. So I think there's more to Metzger than they let on. I feel like they should have really let into that, which is why I was saying that Kralik, aka the Beast, would have made more sense. He could have been controlling Metzger, and the Hand knows he's controlling Metzger, so they fall in line. That would have went perfectly without any Jean Grey. So my theory is obviously there's going to be more to Metzger. We're going to see more of Metzger. And at the end of the movie, we don't know what happened to Metzger. So that's something I'll touch on again at the end of this spoiler section too, that I'll probably come back around to, is what happened to Metzger? Where is Metzger? Why is Metzger? But one of the other things that I did like, again, were all the kind of Easter egg action shots. Yes, they were very short-lived, but they were really good. I loved how they depicted Tombstone, holding him off the ledge. Do you think if I drop you, you'll fall? Like, I loved it. They still kept the characters the way they should have been. The little glimpse we got of Tarantula kind of slashing in, that was a comic cover homage. I loved it. I love that they gave us something with some of the other Spider-Man villains. And I wish we would get that more. I wish we would have gotten them sprinkled out throughout the movie. Maybe a couple other ones. It would have been fantastic. But the action set pieces were just so good. The introduction of the Punisher with Spider-Man and they're quipping back and forth, kind of talking about another run-in that they had where Peter saved his ass. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Punisher's kind of like, yeah, you think I owe you for that? What do you think I owe you? I owe you. You didn't do nothing. I loved the bickering between the two of them. It worked so well, and you got the vibe that these two knew each other. They've been dealing with each other in the city for the past few years. I loved it. One thing that people have been complaining about on the internet has been the Punisher. How beta he is, and how bitch-made he is, and how he's a cuck. He's apologizing. I did not see it that way at all. And I know I'm in the minority. I think the whole sequence of him breaking down at the end of the movie made sense. Bear with me here. This is a guy who lost his wife, lost his kid, lost everything. He's trying to convince Peter that losing everything, losing yourself in this, it's not a choice you want to make. And then at the end of the movie where he's saying, I'm going to do the thing that you can't do. I'm going to pull the trigger. Where's the trigger? I'm going to end the threat. And seeing Peter break through everything and take the bullet. He says it to him in the hospital. What you did was brave. It was selfless. And it showed that he has more respect for Peter. But he also knows that Peter is a kid. And it shows that he's not just a heartless piece of shit. It shows that, yes, I have to be this way because of what I do. And it does show that somewhere in there, Frank is a human being. He knows he screwed up. He made a mistake. He shot someone he's been apparently dealing with for the past few years. So yeah, he was getting a little upset about it. Yes, he was helping Peter. And I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I don't think there was anything super out of character for that. Sure, maybe for what we all want Punisher in our minds, we want Punisher take names, kick ass, shoot first, ask questions later. We want that. But there have been times where the Punisher has kind of made friends. So I didn't have a problem with it. I think the way they handled it was great. He covered for Peter. I think it was great. Do I really like that he knows who he is? Yeah, not so much. Are we going to get everyone knows who Peter is again? I don't know. I hope not. But it was one of the things that I did have a problem with was, why didn't we get Night Nurse? You couldn't have called Rosario Dawson and said, hey, we need you for 5 minutes in a movie. She ain't doing much. I'm sure she would have been in, because that would have made more sense as to why no one was bothering him, who was taking care of him, things like that. Did Frank put Peter's mask on whenever a doctor came? You know, it is those questions. He did say they cut his suit off and he kept the mask. But I was a little confused about that. And the other thing that kind of confused me a little bit was the breaking of the spell, so to speak. So in the scene with MJ and Peter on the roof, aka Jean and Peter on the roof, we get the whole thing where she's remembering him and blah, blah, blah. She raises the mask, gives him a kiss, and then we realize it's Jean and she's going to drop her off a building, right? That is really, really evil and really freaking twisted. And that is not a good first impression of Jean, whether she's dealing with trauma or not, right? She is sadistic, but she is our misunderstood female character, a la Wanda in WandaVision, to where she even creates a giant barrier freezing all the people in place, much like Wanda did in WandaVision, where she freaking took an entire town hostage and brain effed them throughout an entire series. So it definitely rang a lot of similarities there to Wanda, where it's, she's just misunderstood, guys. She was emotional. And I get it. She had a crappy story. They took her sister. They killed her sister. She's mutating. She's having all these changes just like Peter. But it doesn't make what she's doing right or sympathetic or good or redeemable. So now we're going to start her in the X-Men with a higher body count than maybe Wolverine's even got, or an attempted body count too. So I just don't know if making Jean a would-be killer is the best way to start our X-Men. Just saying, guys. And then we got the other magical kind of question, which was the Doctor Strange spell. And I'm not sure if it's true, but we did hear Jean, when she was possessing MJ, talk about true love's kiss breaking a spell. And I thought that at the end of the film, we were going to get Peter and MJ kissing, and she was going to remember him. We didn't get that. But we did get the bro handshake at the end. And Ned looks and goes, Peter?
Oh, there you are, Peter.
That's what I saw. So, did the bro handshake break the spell? He didn't have to kiss Ned. So again, I was a little confused. Does Ned remember him? Does he not remember him? Did the spell break? Did not break? I don't know. And that is one thing that they did kind of leave very ambiguous. And I wasn't too sure about that. But I loved every aspect about the movie, but Smart Hulk and Jean Grey. I think if Jean Grey, again, was replaced with any one of those villains that I mentioned, this movie would have been exponentially better without any ties to the X-Men or setting up future projects, set up Project A, B, and C. If we didn't need to force all that shit into this, I think it would have been a way better movie. This would have been a Spider-Man movie setting up Spider-Man doing Spider-Man things with Spider-Man villains. That's what I really, really wanted. And we were so close. So close with this one. This movie could have been better than all the Tobey movies, all the Garfield movies, and all of the Tom Holland movies if it just, I think, got rid of the set up for future market projects. If all that was done a little bit differently, I think we would have had the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I think Tom Holland is an amazing blend of great Peter Parker and great Spider-Man. Whereas Tobey was a good Peter Parker. He was a very wooden, very meh, very monotone Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was a very rambunctious and dynamic and athletic Spider-Man. But he was a very strange Peter Parker choice. Tom just does it both, and he has it nailed. He's just kind of been, unfortunately, saddled down with the MCU tie-in nonsense. And this movie almost gave it to us perfectly. And I think the Black Widow stuff, the Yelena stuff, was unnecessary. But again, I don't mind seeing her half naked in a freaking tub. Okay? I don't mind that. Florence Pugh on a screen, I'm okay with. But did we need her? No, we didn't need her. We didn't need her at all. Friday could have done all the hacking. Did we need Jean Grey? No. But we got to set up X-Men because we're rushing. We're speed rushing through everything. That's how Marvel does now. Marvel doesn't plan ahead. Marvel speed runs through everything, guys. Guess what, guys? We're going right to Doomsday. Guess what, guys? We're going right to Secret Wars. It's just like, go to next product, guys. Go to next product. And that's what we're doing. And I think if this movie would have gotten that out of it, it would have been the best Spider-Man movie we've ever gotten. So, of course, we end the movie with Jean going on a bus upstate, it looks like, into the woods and everything else, probably going to the school. I think it would have been cool if maybe we would have, even if we didn't hear her talking to somebody, maybe, we didn't need to do the voice for Xavier. Maybe we just had her holding her head, right, and nodding like she was talking to somebody. Give the kind of the little woom, 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 woom effects, like she was talking to somebody. That would have gave an inclining to, okay, she's going to Xavier. Xavier knows what happened. I need you to come here. I'll keep you safe. I'll teach you how to control things. We didn't need to hear him. But I think having her maybe do a little bit of this there in the bus rather than just looking out the window with her face against the glass, I think it would have been cooler to just have had her maybe look like she was communicating with somebody. Just a different hand motion would have changed and added so much more impact. Because people would have looked at that. Obviously, they're seeing the woods and going, oh my God, she's going to the school. But if we saw her kind of looking like she was communicating, people would automatically be going, oh my God, she's talking to Professor X. She's going to the school. And then X, Y, Z, it's all connected. And then, of course, our end credit scene, right? I was kind of bummed we didn't get a post or a mid-credit scene, but we got a post-credit scene. Was just the spider tracker. Apparently can go really far because it's saying signal found and he's off planet. So apparently Ned's tracker can track everywhere or pick up sightings from everywhere. So it's a little weird, but that means obviously it's going to explain why Spider-Man's not in Doomsday. Spider-Man's already off-world. We're going to assume Battle World. We're going to assume Secret Wars. But that also leaves the questions of what happened to the inhibitors? They didn't destroy them. He took his off. It was just sitting there at the end. He didn't destroy it. And Jean's is gone. They didn't destroy that one either. They removed it from her. They had it connected to her. And she did her blast. And it all, obviously, because she took it off, it just got removed. So the inhibitors are still there. What happened to Metzger? Where is he? It just says, we're still looking for him. How the hell did he get away? Punisher had eyes on the building. Everyone else was watching the building. While the people were frozen, he couldn't move anywhere. So where did he go? How did he get away? I've had people assuming maybe he's Mr. Sinister. Maybe he is, and that's why he's so obsessed with Jean. I don't know. It could be. We're already changing Metzger's character for this movie. Maybe he's Sinister. Who knows? But, again, another thing we haven't talked about, we didn't disclose, that's going to leave another thing open for probably long after Secret Wars. Maybe he'll show up when the X-Men movie happens in 5 years. And then the other thing is, we've got an explanation to where Peter is during Doomsday. But how is it going to explain where Hulk is during Doomsday? Hulk was active. Hulk was rampaging. And we know Thor is in Doomsday. And we know Yelena is in Doomsday. And we've seen them in the trailer interacting with each other. So if we're both there, we're both interacting with each other, and I'm Thor, and I'm going after someone superpowered, wouldn't I be looking up Dr. Banner and going, hey, bro, we kind of need the Hulk? So it doesn't make sense as to why the Hulk is not in Doomsday. Just saying. But yeah, those were kind of my spoilery thoughts and hypotheses and problems and things like that. I know it seems like I poked a lot of holes in this movie, but there were a lot of things that brought up questions that didn't get answered and that might not get answered. And there are a lot of things that did happen in the movie that didn't need to happen that probably would have been better with different characters. So, I don't know. These are just, again, my initial thoughts. I'm fresh out of seeing the movie, guys. And these are the things kind of rolling around in my brain right now. So, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Now, do me a favor. In the comments, try not to be super spoilery. If you've got something to comment about, I'd love, send me a message. Write in a comment saying, hey, I agree with you about a certain thing, but try not to ruin the movie for everyone else. I know it's the internet, guys, and we're going to spoil things. And things are probably spoiled for everyone already. But I'm just asking, try to be as cool about it as we can, at least for the first week or two of the movie being out, because a lot of people haven't been able to get to see it yet. So, I don't know. Those are all I can really think of the top of my head from my spoiler section here, guys. And I know this has been a little long. These thoughts are kind of maybe all over the place, but I tried to spit it out in a fashion that's easy to digest for you guys. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your opinions. Do you guys agree with me that the unanswered questions pose a problem? Do you guys agree that Jean being removed from the movie would have made for a much better movie? Putting Mr. Negative, putting Chameleon, putting Kralek, Kralek, whichever you pronounce it as, or any of the other villains in Spider-Man's whole repertoire that we could have had, do you think it would have been better? Or do you think it even would have been better in the thing that I actually did assume was going to happen, which was Kralek possessing Jean Grey? So the demon of the hand possessing Jean Grey and using her to do his dirty work. Having her possessed a la Shadow King with Storm would have made it a little bit better for me using her. Because then it was her being controlled by someone else and using her powers to not show the big bad. And I think that would have been a lot cooler if we had to use Jean to make her possessed by a higher plane entity. Just my thoughts, just my opinions. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. So that's it for the spoiler section, guys. I know it was more poking holes and theorizing, but at the end of the day, the movie was really good. It had a lot of cool scenes. It had a lot of fun stuff. But there were a lot of problems that kept this from being a 9 or a 10 movie for me. And it could just be me nitpicking. But that is going to officially be it for this one. So thank you guys for sticking around for the kind of spoilery ranting portion of the video, guys. If you did like the video, do me a solid. Click the like, the subscribe, the share, spread the nerdiness, follow on all the socials, and that's going to be it, guys. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, everyone.